At 7:12 on a Monday morning, Daniel stopped by his usual cafe for his usual coffee before heading to work. Everything was completely normal until he tapped his card. Card declined. Daniel looked at the cashier, slightly confused. "That's impossible. Try it again." She did. Declined again. Now Daniel was starting to feel embarrassed because this didn't make sense. He had a good job. He drove a nice car. He wore expensive clothes. He'd just spent the weekend at a nice hotel with his friends. There was no way he couldn't afford a coffee, so he paid with his phone and walked outside. But the whole thing bothered him. And for the first time in a long time, Daniel actually looked at his balance. And that's when he saw it. His balance was much lower than he expected. He refreshed the screen, same number. He checked another account. Not much there either. Then he started going through his recent transactions, and suddenly, all those little purchases he'd never thought about started appearing in front of him. Coffee, food deliveries, Uber rides, shopping, subscriptions, weekend plans, random purchases he barely remembered making. None of them had felt expensive, but together they had quietly eaten through most of his salary. And that's when Daniel realized something uncomfortable. He wasn't bad at making money, he was bad at keeping it. For years, he'd told himself that once he earned more, saving would become easier. Then he got the raise, and somehow, he still wasn't saving. His lifestyle had simply grown with his income. A better salary meant better restaurants, more expensive clothes, more trips, more convenience, more things that made life feel good in the moment. And because he could technically afford them, he never felt like he was doing anything wrong. Until that morning. A cup of coffee had forced him to confront something he'd been avoiding for years. He wasn't financially secure. He was just financially comfortable enough that he hadn't noticed. And honestly, I think that's where saving becomes difficult for a lot of people. You don't necessarily wake up one day and decide to waste your money. It happens gradually. Your income increases, your lifestyle increases, and eventually you find yourself earning more than you ever have while still wondering where the money went. The dangerous part is that every individual decision feels reasonable. It's only a coffee. It's just dinner. I deserve this. I'll save next month. And maybe you do deserve to enjoy your money. That's not the problem. The problem is when every month your present self gets everything and your future self gets whatever happens to be left, because there usually isn't much left. That's why Daniel changed one thing after that morning. He stopped treating saving as something he'd do after spending. He started treating it as something that happened before spending. The moment his salary came in, a portion disappeared into savings. Not because he suddenly became incredibly disciplined. He simply made the decision before temptation had a chance to negotiate with him. And something interesting happened. At first, he barely noticed the difference. But after several months, he opened his savings account and saw something he'd never really had before. Options. An unexpected expense didn't feel like a crisis. A job opportunity didn't automatically terrify him because he had no money. He could make decisions without immediately asking, "Can I afford to survive if this goes wrong?" And I think that's the part about saving that people sometimes miss. You're not just saving money, you're buying yourself breathing room. You're buying yourself choices. You're giving your future self a little more freedom than your present self had. So maybe the question isn't, why can't I save money? Maybe it's, why does everything I earn already have somewhere to go? Because if every raise immediately becomes a better lifestyle, you'll keep needing more money just to feel financially okay. And sometimes, becoming wealthier doesn't start with earning more. It starts with learning how to keep some of what you already earn.